Well, hello everyone, Texie88 here and welcome to another review. And this is actually from the previous generation of consoles, and because as I record this, it's exactly 1 day away from the European release, one day away from the 10th anniversary of the European release of Rock Band 3. I thought I'd take a look at it, as this remains one of my favourite games. Now, as a lot of people will know, Rock Band was invented by Harmonix, and in 2007 the first game came out to critical acclaim. That previously Harmonix had done the first and second Guitar Hero games before music television found a new way to market music and acquired Harmonix, and Harmonix in turn sold the rights to Guitar Hero, but expanded on what sold the rights to Guitar Hero to Activision and had no further part in that particular franchise. But when they came up with Rock Band, they expanded on what they'd done with Guitar Hero and added voice and drums. And the first Rock Band was a huge success, although it did get some criticism for its clunky interface. However, they greatly improved on that in the following year's Rock Band 2, which came towards the end of 2008. And then 2 years later, it got a major overhaul, as well as some new instrument support for Rock Band 3. There were some other titles in between, but I won't go into that, because it'll be waffling about things that are nothing to do with what I'm about to discuss. Now, Rock Band 3, it not only allowed you to use the same guitar, drum and voice from the previous games in the franchise, but it also allowed for 2 or 3 part vocal harmonies, which was previously used in the Beatles Rock Band, which came out on 9th of September 2009, 090909, and also added a keyboard peripheral to the mix, which added an additional player. So that basically meant you could have 7 people playing along to the same song. And speaking of songs, there are 83 songs on disc, and many of them actually make use of the then new keyboard peripheral. And in addition to that, any downloadable content up until that point from the previous games, so with 1 or 2 notable exceptions, was actually cross-compatible with Rock Band 3. So if you had any DLC which you bought for the first 2 games, it would automatically work in Rock Band 3 at no additional costs, save for a couple of anomalies. The same goes for almost all songs that were exportable from the first Rock Band. And they also allowed 79 of the 84 songs from Rock Band 2 to be exportable, but via a menu option in Rock Band 3 to use the code from the back of Rock Band 2's manual to export whatever could be exported, and with a selection of 9 songs that were from I believe from members of Harmonix at the time who were involved in bands at the same time. There were 9 songs from Rock Band 2 which were for them, and that was offered at no additional cost as separate downloadable content. So 79 of the 84 songs from Rock Band 2 were exportable into Rock Band 3, again for a one-time fee. And what makes Rock Band 3 another thing that makes Rock Band 3 special is that Harmonix actually teamed up with a company called Mad Cats, who not only did the official Rock Band 3 keytar thing for the keyboard parts, which also works as a MIDI compatible keyboard outside of the game, but they also managed to organise two pro guitar controllers which catered for Rock Band 3's pro guitar and pro bass modes to allow for controllers that more actively simulate the real deal. There was one which used slitted buttons to simulate the frets across 6 strings. In the case of it replicating bass, you'd simply ignore 2 of the strings in inverted commas, while the other controller was actually a genuine Fender Squier electric guitar that could also be used as an electric guitar outside the game, and it had some switches built into it for use in Rock Band 3. And I remember that the latter in particular sold out very quickly. But they also introduced a pro drums mode, and there was, not only was there a separate controller that added 3 cymbals, but for the bass drum sets from previous games, if you added the then available 3 separate cymbals to that, you could also do the pro drums that way as well. And they also, Mad Cats also did a MIDI compatible adapter for the main consoles of the time, so that most MIDI compatible electronic drum kits and keyboards could also be used with the game. So they covered a lot of bases there, and in the case of downloadable content that came out in the few years that followed, any part that had keyboard in the original would have it charted for core keys and pro keys. And with the case of the pro keys, like the pro guitar and pro bass, it more accurately reflected what you'd play on the real deal, albeit with a couple of slight tweaks to get around a limitation, whereas you could only see a section. It could only focus on a section of the keyboard rather than having an on-screen highway that showed the whole keyboard, because my guess is that they did that because showing the whole keyboard would have made the whole display way too small to be possible to read at a glance. So it focuses on a section, and it gives you a warning when it's about to scroll to the left or right to cater for another section of the keyboard. It sounds more daunting than it actually is, and you do quickly get used to it. And in addition to that, selected downloadable content had an optional pro guitar and pro bass upgrade that was chargeable at a smaller fee more than the bass song, because of the increased work involved in looking at footage of the actual band playing live to see what was actually played. Now, I know some people watching will think, well, Rocksmith did that kind of thing a lot better. Well, Rocksmith didn't actually come out until a year later. Or if you're in Europe like I am, it didn't come out until 2 years later. In fact, when people bought Rock Band 3, I don't think anyone even knew that Rocksmith was even on its way, apart from Ubisoft. But Rock Band 3, I still think that had a great varied set list, which by and large made great use of the newer modes, and it actually, to a certain extent, it actually taught you some things as well, with some in-game tutorials. And when you're using the pro guitar modes, if you were playing a chord, it would actually tell you what the name of the chord you were playing. The only real gripe with the pro guitar and pro bass modes is you had to play it exactly as the on-screen note highway shows. So you could, even if you knew you could get it, for example, exactly the same pitch by playing a different fretted note on a different string, that won't work in Rock Band 3. Unfortunately, you have to play it exactly as shown on screen, even if you wouldn't normally have done it that way. However, I still think that Rock Band 3 is my favourite out of the series. It had the most varied set list, although if you were able to export from Rock Band 2, you'd still have a pretty good set list from that as well. And it's just a great party game all round, especially if you manage to do it in full band mode with 7 people playing. So I'd happily give Rock Band 3 a 9 out of 10. I'm sorry that I couldn't actually review it with actual footage on screen, but as you can imagine, the Rock Band series centres around actual pop rock and emo and new metal, rap, hip hop, and other genres of music. And obviously, I don't own the rights to those, so the likelihood is that I'd have copyright strikes aplenty if I, or at the very least, would have some audio in this review muted if I even attempted that. So I didn't want to risk that. So that's why I'm doing the review this way instead. I hope you all understand and appreciate that I couldn't realistically do it any other way. And I know there is something called a fair use policy, but realistically, it's only fair use if the rights holders of even just one song say it is. If they say it isn't, then it isn't, and there's nothing you can do about it. At the end of the day, they own the rights to the songs, and they have the final say as to how they're used. So, despite the somewhat limited capability to do this review in the same way I would have done most, if any others, I hope you still got some enjoyment out of the video anyway. Catch you on another video soon. Texie88 out.